This is The Warrior's Journey, a podcast designed to equip, inspire, and bridge the gap between military members, veterans, their families, and our communities. The Warrior's Journey is an interactive online community where warriors and their families can find resources and encouragement to navigate the unique challenges they face, and presents the message of faith as the path to finding wholeness in everyday life. For questions, resources, and to find ways to get involved, visit thewarriorsjourney.org.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Weaver with The Warrior's Journey, back with the Warrior's Journey podcast / videocast. Really excited about a very, very special guest. I won't speak for him, but I will speak for me. Jonathan is a dear friend and has been such an important part really of the development of what's been happening with The Warrior's Journey, especially these last 3 to 4 years. And so Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you.
U.S. Army veteran.
Yeah.
Special operations guy with civil affairs. And I'm just going to stop there because I'd really like just to say, hey, tell us about your experience in the military, and then we're going to dive into some really cool topics and talking about, this, what we're calling our partner series, because Jonathan has been a premier partner to us, and we'll talk more about that later. But fire away. Just tell us about Jonathan.
Listen, I appreciate you. Thank you for opportunity to just sit and visit and talk and kind of just talk through this journey a little bit. That's the whole point, right? This is a warrior's journey. I am one of those. And I'm a product of 9/11. That kind of changed the world. A little older, actually. I actually thought I missed my chance to join the military. I always thought that you had to be, you're 17, 18, 19, and that's how you go in. That's the only way to go in. And then as life took me through basketball and different things, I was 26 years old. And so I was actually pretty old going into the military at 26 at that time.
I went in when I was 21, and I thought I was old.
Yeah.
We had guys that were 26. Our oldest guy was 28. So
yeah, he was the old guy.
Like Grandpa. We called him Grandpa. It was hilarious.
That was his guy.
That's awesome.
But man, I'm thankful for the life experience leading up to that, which helped prepare me more. But yeah, I joined at 26.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the photos up here.
Yeah.
What's the earliest photo here?
The earliest photo is probably me on the right hand side. These two top pictures on the right side.
Yeah.
And some pretty neat experiences to go with all of that.
Yeah,
for sure. But yeah. So this picture here, what's funny, you talk about old guy. I was 35 years old when I went through air assault.
Really?
I mean, that was a generational gap.
Yeah, huge.
I was in that room with 17-year-old cadets.
Right.
And they're at night they'd call home and call their mommies and daddies. And I'm like, where am I? I'm laying on the concrete floor trying to get my back to adjust.
You're calling your wife and your kids, right?
I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I did that
funny.
at 35. I was one of the older guys to do it, and that was a heck of a challenge for sure.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, that was a good picture.
Well, feel free as you're talking and maybe sharing your story a little bit. Feel free to refer. We'll keep this up here for a few minutes. And good stuff.
So I jumped in and had a heart to serve. I always had a heart to serve. It just you don't really know how. God kind of some unique journey in there. Believe it or not, when I was 18 years old, I went down to New Mexico Military Institute, which is NEMI, in Roswell, New Mexico, to go play basketball.
Really?
And I was 18 years old, and I walked in there, went on to register for school. I was going to join their cadet program on a course to become an officer and serve my country. And I was going to play basketball for them. And that summer, before school started, I get a phone call. They're like, hey, we got a slot for Officer Basic at Fort Knox, Kentucky. I didn't know, and I'm fresh out of high school, didn't know a thing, and I'm like, here we go. I went at 18 years old without truly signing any documents to become anything. I joined and went to Officer Basic at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Explain that a little bit, because when I hear, was it basic training when you say officer?
So through the ROTC program. So anyone going through an ROTC program, even your major academies will send your summer camps and go for officer, right? There's some different levels of that. So they literally called it Officer Basic at that time.
Got it.
And I learned all the basic military skill sets, and man, I loved it. I thrived, met some incredible people along the way. But I came home and I still struggled with making commitment. And I had a fear of that. Like, man, one course in life. I didn't feel ready. As a young man, I struggled, and I never showed back up for school.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't sign anything. I didn't commit in any way. I went and played basketball someplace else, but fear drove me away from it. Not a love for the military, but just my own personal struggles as a young man.
So would you say was it really fear, or was it more like I'm just not ready? I just don't feel like this is what I'm supposed to do, or was it like
Well, you mean you're making a choice at 18 years old that the whole trajectory of your life. But I was like, man, is this really it? Is this my one path?
Right.
I'm like, I want to go play basketball. Let me go, maybe it'll lead to other opportunities. So I wasn't ready to make that one directional commitment.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And ended up floundering for the next, really 6-8 years of my life. Kind of God took me on a journey. I went to 5 colleges over 7 years.
Wow.
And I still to this day don't have a degree. So I have over 200 credit hours. I have enough for a master's degree,
Right.
and I have no paper to show any value.
Well, you've got great leadership skills, though. So I think
It was the journey. Well, the journey was my education.
You got the education.
I got the education.
Absolutely.
I just don't have the paper. And to this day, if you were to ask me, there's not 1% of me that is willing to go back and get it.
Right.
Because it doesn't validate something in my life. And
There's
I think
no advantage to it.
no. And I think young men and women need to understand that too. That's not the only ticket to success. You can learn a lot through life and experience and do just fine.
Boy, howdy. I mean, and I'm thinking about what's coming out of our colleges recently, and it's like, wow.
That's not worth a nickel.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't tell my boys this now, but because we were like, get your degree, but now it'd be like, if they were graduating today, I'd be like, hey, find your purpose, and if that includes college, great, but there are other ways. And I know that as I'm saying this, my youngest son, maybe who's helping us produce this video, is like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. But I have, listen, these are real conversations. I've been having them at home with my wife, with my kids.
That's good.
It's not just to check the box. If there's a purpose, direction, I'm all for it, but I don't need to send children into the lion's den just to experience life. And that have such influence that I don't have control over, or obviously my point is I can't have control over everything my kids take in.
Right.
But you do, as parents, caution your children and try to put them in the best position to grow and flourish in society.
Yeah.
School, big question mark.
So, got to ask you. So, if you were to look back and have to assess, I think I know the answer, but would you say, man, I kind of regret that. I wish I would have. Or are you like, hey, it all worked out? I mean, so, because I know as people are listening, they might think, well, that kind of relates to me, but I deal with regret. Or so, what's your advice on that?
None. So, I wouldn't. The point is, I wouldn't change a thing, right? That was my journey, and God had to use a lot of those failures, those mistakes, the successes, everything combined was the process of shaping and refining a life.
Love it.
And so, right, there's very few things I look back in a rearview mirror and wish I can change. They're not all pretty, right? You wish you didn't make decisions that hurt people along the way. But God still loves me, and He's teaching me, and He's growing me through those things. And so when you see it that way, it's like, no, let's keep pressing forward and approach it the same way I approached life back then. And God still has me on a journey. And maybe in 10 years, we're looking back being like, what? I never saw that coming, right? Who knows? But I'm not done.
Yeah.
And my journey continues, and it might look like a crazy with a lot of curves. But man, I'm thankful for where it has led me today. And because of that, makes me, I think, more efficient and better prepared for what I face daily. And I hope that as I learn from this in the future, I am more prepared also.
Yeah, it's great. One of the things that I'll speak to, if it's okay, just the characteristics that I've loved as I've gotten to know you better and have, like you've become a friend to me. I'd hope to think that maybe I could say that there's been some value that I've added to your life, probably not a whole lot, but I mean, you've added a huge value point to the Warriors journey in our life, my life personally. But the one characteristic that I just so appreciate is this, it's can do. It's like, whenever I think of Jonathan Garard, it's like, well, we can do that. We'll get it done. Get it done. There's a way. There's a way, and it's an optimistic kind of approach to life. And so, I think for you, it's very contagious, and I watch that in the people that work for you, your company, and also just the people at the Warriors Journey. It's been such a breath of fresh air for all of us. So that characteristic, I don't think necessarily comes naturally to everybody. That may have been something that has been a gift for you, through your life, but
it was shaped, refined,
right? But definitely coming now. So with that having been said, kind of go back just a little bit and talk about, here's my experience in the military, here's my journey, and then how did that lead you to where you are with your company? We'll talk about that too. And because this is where the partnership really, in a sense, really your partnership began, I think, more on a personal level, which I'd love to hear more about that too, but because I think that'll help our listeners and our those who are viewing this. But so just tell us a little bit about the whole part of that journey.
Yeah, I had it was ultimately ended up, God gave me a 15-year career in the military. Starting at age 26, and it was a unique path, very different. I think everyone has a unique journey, and believe it or not, as in the reserves, man, you can kind of write your own story if you know how. And you get someplace and you don't care for how it works, or it's not a great fit. And you're like, well, let's figure out let's put yourself in the right position to succeed.
Right.
And I actually entered into, I didn't know any different. I came in as a transportation coordinator for the military. And it didn't take long to realize, I want more. I can do more. And so kind of found a way to navigate. Well, what's the quickest way into special operations? And as you start looking through that, there is a shortcut. And it was at that point, civil affairs, psychological operations. That's the way into that vein that opened up a whole new world.
But a big switch from the MOS you were in and the mindset of this MOS. That's a huge transition.
Huge transition, but it's maybe sometimes you're born with a mindset, right? God's given you certain things, and you realize, man, I can better serve over here and use my gifts over here. But it was it was what we were chasing. You wanted an opportunity. Part of me joining the military and going overseas and all that, I'm uniquely made. And life is really discovering, what is this capable of? What is my capacity? Where's my shortcoming? Where's my weakness? What am I? What do I need to refine? And that was, let's go throw it in the fire. Yeah. Let's throw it in the fire and find out.
Which is a perfect thing the military does. And just for context, what year was that when you made that switch? You're in transportation. But
so I joined in 2002. You kind of go through the pipeline. By 04, it was end of 03, 04, and my brother had just gotten back from his tour in Afghanistan in a transportation unit. And I'm like, hey, little bro, let's go do something else. And he's like, let's roll. And so we found...
And you hadn't been deployed yet?
No. He did. He spent a whole year in Afghanistan in a pretty unique situation out of K2, which has its own storyline for our soldiers and some tough things.
Yeah.
But so anyways, we found through reserve side, actually up in Kansas City. It was a 418 Civil Affairs Battalion. And that threw us into a pipeline. They were desperate for people. And so they're like, if you're dumb enough to come this way, we'll take you. And
come on.
They did. My brother and I, we did it together and directly into kind of a reclass, another AIT type of
I was going to say, you had to go to school.
Had to go reclass.
Did you do that together?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we did it together and then met some incredible people.
Yeah.
And actually through those relationships, which led to our first deployment. So 04, we made the transition. And by the end of 04, I was already in theater.
And you were together in theater? You and your brother?
Yes, together in theater.
I didn't know that.
No,
okay, I didn't realize you guys did that together.
We did it together.
Wow.
And
because it's a little unusual, right?
It is. And so the unit, they reached out to mom and dad. But my mother's perspective was always, I'd rather know they're all these miles away, but they're not alone. She had more peace knowing they had each other.
That's cool.
Than wondering what is his experience and not having a relational aspect there.
Yeah, because you weren't going to make any other friends.
Right? Yeah. Because Mom,
I'm kidding.
Mom, people like me, Mom.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, I'm kidding. But isn't that funny? And as a parent, I get that now as a parent because we've had kids deploy, and it's like, okay, yeah, you're right. If they were together, there would be an added comfort that at least they have each other.
And for her, it might be different for each parent.
Sure.
But for her,
interesting.
It gave her more peace. And so it was at that point that started really a military career and a journey. You even saw in some of those pictures, it's my brother and I standing, together outside of Humvee on a different mission.
Yeah, bring that back up.
So it was, no, he's not in this one. It's there's some others, but that day in the left-hand corner, my brother's actually off to the side with us on that mission. So it was really special to do that alongside him.
That's cool.
Which was it was a gift.
And I know that civil affairs, I think most Army people understand that, but maybe for some listeners who don't really get that, it's kind of that hugs, bugs, and drugs component of that, working with everybody probably from CAG to special forces guys, Army Rangers. It's kind of in that tier.
You're assigned a small team unit, same way. A CAT team, they're smaller and they're mobile and they're independent. So you need guys who can kind of survive on their own or navigate a battle space.
Yep.
So you're dealing with you're communicating with your whoever's in command in that battle space. So you're not just talking with lower enlisted. You need to communicate your mission, your value, have an impact on where missions and operations are taking place.
It's awesome.
So it was a component of, it took civilian skills, it took military skills, all these different things to hopefully have an impact in a good way, all while still being a soldier first.
Yeah, and in a combat type of setting too. Right. I mean, you were exposed to, I'm sure, some kinetic situations that a lot of times, most military, even in the Army or in the Marine Corps, a lot of guys don't ever experience that.
No.
So, but you're kind of thrust in that, but then you have to pick up the pieces, put it back together. You're working with communities, and it's actually a pretty cool MOS. I've really grown to be intrigued by civil affairs because it's fairly new too. I mean, in the scheme of the Army, right? It's not been around for decades.
It's been around for a while. I mean, it took birth post World War II and Reconstruction efforts,
right?
But it's defined a mission and has grown and
especially post Vietnam.
Correct, absolutely, and that's it's a big deal, and
it's cool.
It was I'm a kid from, at this point in Spring. I didn't grow up in Springfield, but when you consider yourself, you're a kid from Springfield, and you started in transportation just 2 years earlier, and just how you handle yourself or opportunities that come your way. I went from civil affairs to being picked up and thrown on a roster for an ODA, just through capability, maybe how you handle yourself. They grew to trust me, and I went from a B team directly to direct action team. I was with 044, which was the Halo team for 10th Group.
Did you go through Halo training?
No. This happened in theater.
So
I am plucked out of. I am reassigned in theater, right? 10th Group took they were so short on personnel, and so many from casualty to different issues,
right?
That they literally plucked a CA guy off mission and threw me in and said, "Hey, we need your help."
So I got to ask you. So I mean, if you can or cannot say, but so did you actually jump with these guys then? And
no, air assault missions.
Okay, perfect. I was going to say if you hadn't gone through Halo school, that might be a little rough.
Tandem. Do they do tandem in theater?
Here's on-job training. It's like, holy cow!
Hey guys, you're gonna have to strap me in. But
exactly.
Let's roll.
Here's your 5-minute course. Don't take the mask off.
No. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. But
gosh, I can only imagine. Okay, well, good. Yeah.
No, but
because I could see that happening depending on
they just assume they in that world they assume you can manage manage yourself and handle yourself.
Yeah.
So the positions I was in, I was not so-called trained for.
Right.
But they trusted me, and I did what I was supposed to do at the right time.
Sure.
And they just treated me like one of theirs, and
that's cool.
It left me with lasting relationships today that are really special to me.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. That's really cool.
So it was a great year. I mean, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very different in a CA mission.
Now, your brother was not with you on that, or was he?
My brother was on the same forward operating base.
Okay,
but my brother was not.
He didn't get plucked to an ODA.
My brother was with the CA team. On that FOB. While I'm there with the ODA.
Was he just cussing you? Like, man, are you kidding me?
He was over every night.
I want to do this.
They loved him the same way. He didn't get so we shared missions sometimes because of what that entire operation looked like.
Right.
But never directly with that.
I could just tell you.
Oh yeah.
I know Jeremy enough to know that he'd be like, oh man, that's like I'm jealous.
He's but they treated him great. And,
that's awesome.
So it was a cool experience, and which led to, that experience is I came back and just trying to find how to manage military and civilian life, and it was a challenge.
Yeah.
So I started building homes, as a real construction contractor, and
you and Audrey are married.
We're married at this point. I came home, got married, and just trying to make life work while still serving in the reserves.
Right.
Op tempo's crazy still when you're in that type of, with the wars that we had going on.
And you never know when you might be called up to go again.
No,
right?
and it was hard. 08 hit, the market collapsed. I was fortunate enough to sell the home I just finished building. It was a spec home, able to sell it. But I had to sit down with Audrey and said, I got to go make money. I got to provide for my family. And ended up, at that point, Blackwater was just running hot and opportunities. And I threw my hat in the ring to see if, I would meet the standard for them. I met the standard and made it through their training and ended up, Lord willing, being able to kind of go back. Once again, my brother and I.
Yeah.
And
back. You're still in the reserves too, right?
Still in the reserves.
Which is something interesting because I learned after talking to you that you could actually be in an active reserve unit and then do contracting like that.
Yeah, it was. There's some gray area. There was a little,
don't ask, don't tell.
It was a little gray, and just kept making up, just kept doing what they asked me, and just kind of making up things as I went. But I was just feeding my family, and I was good at that.
But again, fun. I mean,
man, what a great life experience.
Yeah.
That was a different world. Blackwater eventually got moved out of theater. And then what ended up happening was Triple Canopy came in, and the State Department gave that contract to them, and ultimately they just gave us new shirts and new hats. So we were, that's kind of how that went down.
Okay.
And then we just stayed on mission for the State Department.
Yeah.
And was able to survive for a couple years. Have some really unique experiences, but provide for my family.
And those deployments that you did there was a little shorter?
Yeah, they're much shorter.
Okay.
And this is where you had to learn, and you had to learn quickly what you as a person are going through, because it was hard enough coming home the first time. I went, coming from a year-long deployment, I literally in that early stages went from the battlefield to my living room by myself. In Springfield, Missouri, in a matter
like 24 hours.
I mean, it was a flash.
Yeah.
And so you talk about having to learn to cope and deal, and
it's rough.
And you didn't know what was going on. You thought you were okay. It took a while to discover, but when I went back in 08, 9, 10, in kind of the contract world, there were 90-day rotations. So 90 days on, 30 days off. So 90-30, 90-30.
Whoa.
So you're going from 3 months kind of hot environment, and then 30 days at home.
And you cycled like that for?
That was it.
How and you did that for 3 years?
No, it was. I mean, I went into the pipeline in 08.
Okay.
And came home in 10. So you have the pipeline. You have training at.
Still, that's a very intensive tempo.
Yeah. So your tempo's there, and sometimes you between contracts you'll take some extra months off before coming back on.
You almost think it'd be the other way around, 30 days and then home for 90.
Yeah, no, man.
Might have been better.
Yeah. So, but you learn, man, how do you manage yourself on and off? So it gave you more of a chance to know yourself and your spouse and how this works. You ask my wife, I mean, by day 28, she's like, are you ready to go? Like, it's time to go.
Yeah,
because we were only good for 30 days at a time.
You're itching.
We knew how to survive. Well, we knew how to survive for 30 days at a time.
Right.
Anything past that, we weren't good at.
Wow.
So, you go from, hey, go back. Let me get back in my routine. And
it's like a hamster wheel.
It was.
So when you come off of that, like when I'm getting off the wheel itself, how was that? I mean, as far as the transition.
So when I finally came back right after 10, that was harder because you just, one thing. You get good at something and you come back to a world you don't, it's harder to navigate, harder to function, people you don't understand you, hard time relating to, and you're asking me to, and my wife would tell you, she remembers sometimes like I lost my cool and I'm just mad. I'm driving a Camry, I'm wearing a seatbelt. I mean, I got a button shirt on. I mean, my world was upside down.
Right.
And trying to navigate, but because with all this, with the weight and reality that I still have to provide for my family.
Right.
I can fuss, I can whine, I can complain, and I'm struggling.
Right.
But I don't have a choice.
Yeah. And the struggle itself was, man, I'm used to being on mission, doing something so much bigger than myself. The whole idea of team and belonging, community. I mean, that's a special community, right? And a special experience that you have with the guys. You just don't have that when you come home.
No.
Is that part of it?
The isolation, the loneliness, because you're married, but I still lived. I lived 2 lives.
Yeah.
My wife knows me here. My wife does not know who this man is.
Right.
And so I lived literally. I was 2 people.
And her getting to know that guy is pretty rough.
It's pretty rough.
It's hard for her to understand.
And I hid it. I buried it. That's it. I tried to become what she thought, what I was in the beginning, right? You try to go back to that.
Sure.
So
That's a lot of pressure.
It was a lot of pressure, and it's pressure as men, pressure as fathers, husbands. And how do you make this work? And I didn't. First of all, I'm thankful for faith. I'm thankful for God, who helped provide perspective in my own life. It's a component. There's a spiritual component to restoration that is needed for so many young men and women.
You had that prior.
I had it prior.
Yeah.
So there was already a perspective, but still there was no training.
Yeah.
You don't go through those things and not be changed.
Right.
So now what? And how do I deal with this? And how do I navigate these waters? I was told, like, the stress levels at home were almost more than you want to bear. It was easier, and people would laugh. Other military guys would understand it.
Right.
But life was more simple deployed
Right.
in those moments. Right. It was less stress in my life because I had a singular focus. I had simple jobs, simple tasks, right? And step and repeat.
Yeah.
You start adding bills and relationships and all these other things in there. It was overwhelming.
Well, and two, there's even the relational changes. I mean, now I'm integrating in this relationship with, this woman who's a part of my life now. We're one flesh, we're a family, and then I got kids, and it's like you don't have that downrange. I mean, you're just like, I get it. It's like you're doing this versus this, right? So yeah, it makes sense.
And I had to shut this off when I went to do this.
Yeah.
So I literally had to flip
Vice
switches, versa.
Yeah.
And so.
And most people don't get that.
No.
I mean, they don't get it. So, yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, I laugh about it because, so you'd rather be shot at than to go home and be with your family? How's that? It's like, no. It's not what we're saying. What we're saying is it's just different. Yeah. I get it. That's cool.
And so, I mean, you go through that. I did have to make that transition. And so when I was looking for a job, I mean, that was the hardest part. How do I find a job? How do I make sense of, how do I translate this resume to this?
That's cool too, because if you say, okay, looking for a job, but I think what I might be hearing you say is, I want to find a mission that I can enjoy. Is that what you're?
That's the hope.
Versus just making a paycheck.
Yeah,
right,
but that was the hope.
Which is a big ask.
But I had to concede that was not going to happen.
Okay.
So now you deal with the disappointment of what I'm doing out of sense of duty.
Yeah.
I'm doing because I need to show up, make a paycheck, and provide for my family.
What's so huge about that too? We talk to so many individuals, men and women, mostly men, but women too, that when they kind of finally come to that place and they concede, then their family feels like, wow, we're plan D. It's like, whoa,
I'm settling for you.
Right. That whole idea, which isn't the case, but it feels like that to them, right? And then you have
which then I carry more.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like this guilt. It is. It's a cycle.
Vicious cycle.
Crazy cycle. So thank you. Thank you for, honestly, and Jonathan, we didn't talk about this prior to going on the air here with this. Thank you for being vulnerable with that, because I think that's going to help a lot of folks to say, oh man, you're telling my story. Yeah. Okay. So what happened? Because obviously you've been able to more than manage that. You've been able to find huge steps of victory through that. So love to hear more about that. So let's, feel free, just kind of talk, because I know that if we were in this podcast right now, people would be like, "Are you kidding me? Come on, there's got to be more, right? There's got to be more." So what's the rest of the story? Because this is the cool part.
So I did. You make a choice, you make a decision out of sense of duty, and an opportunity opened up, literally to sell advertising at the local newspaper.
Really?
I go from sitting in a world of just. I don't know how to explain it. To you're asking me to sell newspaper ads.
Let me simplify. I was doing some pretty important crap over here. Like I was really involved with some important stuff, and now I'm doing stuff that anybody can do.
Anybody can do.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Fair enough.
But I was like, okay. I mean, I chose to, no matter what was going to come my way, I said that I can't be one to just jump in and out of these things. And I made a commitment to myself, no matter what opens up, no matter what God puts in front of me, I'm going to commit a full year of my life and give everything I have to it.
Good for you.
It was just a choice I had to make. Otherwise, I was going to be, I knew I wasn't satisfied. So it wasn't a matter of what's going to satisfy me.
Right.
I had to make a choice beyond that.
It's a character choice.
It was a character choice.
I'm gonna do this with excellence.
Yeah, because I knew I would chase something that satisfies, and I'd always be chasing it.
Yeah.
And so I had to make a choice, a disciplined choice to, here's 1 year of my life. I'm going to pour into it.
That's awesome.
What a gift that was.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what God had on the other side of that. And, the fulfillment wasn't in solving marketing challenges for companies and finally getting more into consulting because that's how my mind works. That was a better fit through the process. But ultimately, God put me there with some incredible people. I didn't see it coming, right? But that's what you have to trust. I made a choice out of what I thought was duty, but realizing that, man, God wanted to put some people in my life.
Not just a job. It's
Not just a job.
Part of the journey.
No, and man,
That's cool.
I still talk about it. You don't keep in touch with him much because he's so busy. And actually, I think he runs all of Gannett corporate now. But one of our local, his name was Alan Jones, younger than I was. Man, one of the sharpest young men I had ever met. And I to this day would say, even from a leadership standpoint, probably one of the best examples of leadership, including my military career.
Wow.
To this day was probably the most effective leader that even helped refine and shape a lot of my life afterwards. Right. So yeah, I did the job, but God had people there for me to learn from and grow from, which ultimately was the next step in shaping me for what he had in store later in life. So when you look at the journey, you look at that path, this is the story I think with a lot of our young men and women, right? We're still always chasing what can satisfy, right? We're hopping, we're searching. I do think there's components in what people struggle with that the battlefield provides challenges, but so do weak mindsets.
Yeah.
And so
true.
So this is
That's
I think
huge.
where my biggest part of this whole thing is this isn't just, you're not just a victim of something. Yes, there's effects. Yes, there's reality. But man, there's a lack of discipline and grit and
Responsibility.
Responsibility, warrior mindset. It's like we throw all that out the window,
right,
and use our situation as really the one thing that defines us, and it's not.
Yeah, or an excuse to not have to do anything.
That's it.
Right, excuse to make it easy. I think we have tiny heart syndrome going on a lot. Not to be the old guy in the room pointing fingers, but yeah, it is. It's disconcerting. This last week, did some Navy stuff, with some active duty Navy folks, and then made that transition to an Army battalion thing that the Warriors Journey was engaged in. And it was funny because the commanders are all saying this. Even the younger company commanders are saying, yeah, we're just dealing with a lot of attitudes. And the attitude is, I really don't want to be here. And man, you're making me work, instead of, man, this is awesome. Let's all team work together. And he says, we're fighting that cultural thing. And I don't know. That's just
it's a challenge.
It's a reality that I think a lot of people don't really necessarily want to talk about. So, but
think of the other side of that. Think what that mindset and that attitude compounded with the realities of war. And, right, it's a concoction for a really brutal result.
Yeah, because if we end up going into more kinetic experiences, which I think may happen. I mean, right now we are not living in a stable world right now. And we have another 9/11 or something like that. I mean, you like to think that people would rise to the occasion, but man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
It's changing.
It is. It is changing. So you took that whole attitude, though, toward that faithful service, to that job, and that led to, some really cool things that you're doing now that.
It did. All while I'm still in the reserves, all while I'm trying to balance, you go into sales and someone's like, hey, here's some orders for 30 days. You try to keep your sales accounts going when you're getting ripped out for 30 days someplace. So you're trying to fight all these different dynamics, and then I'm trying to turn this off while I turn this on.
Yeah, that's hard.
And I started living this world where I had to learn to flip switches.
Yeah.
But when I did that, it completely tunes out. To be successful, I had to turn off something when I turned on something.
Yeah.
And people don't always get that, right?
To accept the consequences that go with that too, right? Because when you turn off your job, in a sense, you're not turning off your family, but you're turning off the engagement that you have with
you turn off the emotion.
Right.
Because that's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's detrimental.
Right.
So to be good in different areas, you had to think that way.
Focused. Yeah.
And it was a focused approach, and it was hard. And what's interesting, a crazy dynamic that I wasn't really prepared for was when I finally left the military too, there was no more switches to flip. And so the habitual patterns of life where, I can live in a world But man, it wasn't within 6 months that I get to flip one off and I get to flip one on.
Right. Like you say, you're living two lives.
I live in two lives.
Now I'm only living one life.
Now I live one. So there was no off and there was no on.
Was that a little like, whoa?
What a challenge.
Yeah.
Because there was a need. Man, I struggled. That's even staying in the reserves was a gift because taking me away for 30 days, I get to check out of something.
Right.
And step into something and reapply myself and be the best I can.
It's kind of like a reset.
It was a reset.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And you know, and which was great during all that time. But what it led to was, okay, I'm home. I'm now taking this experience of my deployments and my experience, and I went in and became an instructor for the military. So the civil affairs world, they couldn't get soldiers through the pipeline quick enough. And so I actually, after being gone for all those years at Blackwater and Triple Canopy, the military didn't love it once they figured out what I was doing. And so my unit, you know, I think there was a few people in there that were kind of annoyed that I lived in this two worlds and
really almost three worlds,
a
right?
little special, little special treatment. So when I landed, I was handed orders to go back, mobilized by the Army. So I come off after being a hard way. I got kids, babies. I come home and I get served orders to redeploy with the Army the day I hit ground.
Wow. When you come back from Blackwater.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the
emotional toll that took.
Wow.
Because I'm done. I'm coming home.
Right. And you're talking about a long deployment too, probably.
I'm talking about a deployment.
Like a 12.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And you talk about and then now this I'm one of the few people probably left. I was probably one of the last ones they did this to. I remember there was changes to it, but I was actually Title 10 orders. I was in support of, right? But it was stateside.
Oh, that's even worse.
So guess what? So I didn't get extra pay. Nothing. I am deployed.
Right.
I am deployed to Fort Dix, New Jersey. You talk about another small hole in the wall.
And you can't have visitors. You can't.
Fort Dix, New Jersey. And I'm not, man, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'd rather send me overseas.
Right.
And I go on the trail and I probably, 90, 100 days straight, you don't get a day off because you don't have enough instructors. They just run them back to back. These are 28, 29 day courses, right?
Right.
On the reserve side, you're reclassing. I'm teaching ANOC, BNOC,
Wow.
right? I'm still at E5, E6 at this point, teaching above my pay grade. And it was just
miserable.
It was tough. You know, I met some great people along the way.
I gather, though, that you probably in the midst of that, you were like, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well. I'm going to give my all to this. I'm excellent with this.
I love to teach.
But when I'm going home at night, I'm like, I'm hating life.
Yeah.
You know,
it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. I love teaching. I love mentoring.
Right.
And so I loved pouring my life into all of those students, giving everything I have every day.
It's just the context that really made it difficult, I'm sure. So was that the end for you? Was that the final straw? And then
No, well, at that point, I've been on the trail. I mean, my deployments were so heavy. At that point, I knew I'd have some rest at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I get home and the Army's like, hey, back to reserves.
Yeah.
So I stayed as an instructor out of a unit out of Texas, out of Lubbock, Texas. I think the 5th and the 95th actually was the unit I was assigned to. And so at that point, that's when I'm literally doing these small 30-day deployments on and off, but still trying to provide for my family, these different things. So it had its unique challenges. So now I'm trying to be good. And the tempo is changing in the reserves. There's no more 1 week in a month type of thing, right? The requirements, I'm literally every night of the week required different training. You're not paid for it. You're sitting at home, all the courses, the amount of stuff that comes your way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I'm trying to get back into leading my family. You know,
I think a lot of listeners go right now, okay, I'm not doing the reserves when I get out.
Yeah, it comes a challenge. Tempo is tough.
Sure.
The younger junior soldiers, you know, you're fine. But the amount of online training and requirements that have to be met.
Just to keep up.
Yeah. It became a lot. And so I began to struggle with, I had three major things in my life. I had the military, I had my family, and God had opened up an opportunity with the company that we purchased in 2015.
So now you're getting into Grooms. But you were hired there by?
I was never hired at Grooms. I was
Okay.
always newsletter. My wife found Grooms during my early days in deployment. So as I was serving overseas, she found this company, and man, what a gift it was. The original the reason it's Grooms, because that was his last name, Olin Grooms. Olin Grooms was a retired lieutenant colonel for the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
It was his whole second career.
Vietnam guy, right?
Vietnam guy. Distinguished Flying Cross.
Whoa.
Just an absolute beast of a man.
Wow. Warrior.
A warrior.
Patriot too, guys.
Patriot and a warrior.
That's awesome.
And so we shared, I'd come back, we'd visit, we loved to visit. We share a similar mindset.
But Audrey's on staff.
But Audrey's working, yeah.
Gotcha.
That's home. That's her. And I just watched it, and I'm thankful that he took such good care of his people. He just built a wonderful legacy. And so it just, from a distance, I was thankful she had a great, safe place to work.
Sure.
And I love the leadership that was provided her through him. So, but as time went on and he was getting older, it was his second career.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, well, of course,
he retired,
right,
lieutenant colonel, and now he's 38 years in this company. He's not a young man anymore, right?
Wow.
So there was going to come a time, and I kept saying, "Hey, Audrey, you should buy this company." And she's like, "No way, I'd rather work for the man." I'm like, "Okay, all right. You plant a seed, and maybe we'll water the seed later down the road." And I kept saying, "Hey, maybe you should." No way. It's not worth it. I'm like, okay.
So were you thinking, hey, maybe someday you'll be working for the man?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
I'll be the man.
And I'm always the risk. I'm the risk taker. I mean, that's what it takes to survive, right? You're always putting yourself in the front.
Well,
and,
it's a whole new mission then at that point.
It
right?
is.
Yeah.
So it was it gave me something. It gave me purpose, some direction. I mean, a chance to lead.
Yeah. Okay. So what happened? I know the people are like, okay, well, you obviously own the company now. So how did that happen? How did it all transpire?
So it transpired through my wife and I. Really, I kept pushing and challenging, and I couldn't understand the resistance. And eventually, it was like, hey, what if I do it with you? I'm not asking you to do it alone. What if we do it together? And suddenly, that was the aha. Got it, because she is great at what she does. But she wanted nothing to do with that leadership and the personnel and that side. And I'm like, well, that's where I fit in. I don't know the industry, but I understand leadership and people and vision and being on mission. So I can apply that, and let's go do this. She walked in there, and Olin had been trying to sell the company to another large company out of Kansas City. But he knew, man, his name would be gone off the building. Everything about his legacy is gone. And so she walked in and said, hey, what about us? What about me? And he's like, I've been waiting. And
really?
So it was a gift. And he goes, but it's going to cost you money.
I'm not going to give it to you.
We know that. We know that. And it did. It took a year and a half to try to understand how to the financing and do that, to outright buy a company, a legacy company. Yeah. But God worked out some unique pieces and some great stories in that too, with even my lender. But
and what year was that when it finally became yours?
So January 1st of 2015, we took full control of the ship, and wow, what a gift. Yeah. And what a legacy he left. I just want to say that. What a military legacy. Any chance I can honor that man, I always take the chance to. I'm standing on his shoulders.
Yeah.
He had a vision and foundation that I get to launch off of.
That's awesome.
And he was a special man. That's why the name will always stay what it is.
Sure.
And
when you guys, here we are 9 years later, and wow, what you've seen incredible growth.
Yeah, we have.
I get a chance to rub shoulders with a lot of the folks that work for you, and man, the longevity you have in your company, the people just love being there. Even veterans, some of the veterans that we've been able to offer some level of assistance. I love to hear their talk about, oh man, Jonathan, they're amazing. So you've built on that legacy in a very powerful way, but that takes some intentionality on your part. And so it sounds to me that you've taken all these lessons and you've applied that and continue to apply it, here. So living on, fantastic stuff.
It was, man. So I'm now into 2017. I'm still in the military, so I'm trying to do that. I got a family, I got military, I got business, and I'm realizing that I have time for two of them, not three. And I had to come to terms that I believe I gave everything I had to the military, because in order to be good at those, you got to give a lot of time.
It's all or nothing.
And for me, that was hard. I felt like I was reaching a point in my life where I was average in all three of these. And that was a tough place to be, because each one was demanding something of me, and I can never fully give my attention to one. And so one had to go. And so, yes, I walked away at 15 years without a handshake, which is an emotional piece too.
Sure.
Right? So you give, and but you realize you have to, that the choice of my giving was because it was my calling, right? It's not meant for, right? The accolades don't always come with those things, right?
Yeah.
It was a sense of what was right, a sense of duty. I'm at peace with that.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't, when you give your life to something
Right.
and then you walk away from that, I mean, it's an emotional piece, will always be.
Yeah, there's no party. There's no recognition. There's no like something you hang on the wall.
No, especially as a reservist.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at home. You just send your papers in, thank you. And
so many reservists I taught, they feel like second class people already.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Which isn't the case.
Yeah.
It isn't, but it is. But I get it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot.
I gave up something I loved.
Yeah.
And all of it's ugly, right? The military is not a perfect thing, right?
Sure,
Nothing is. But it's still something that I poured your life into, and to walk away from that was giving up something that I had loved.
It was a part of your identity.
Part of my identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like I was turning the light off on a part of me.
Yeah.
And I'll always wrestle with that.
Sure.
Those are real emotions that you can't excuse them. It's a part of it. And so that was that gap. That was that void in my life. That was another transitional hardship. Transition happens a lot for our young men and women as they're coming and going.
Yep.
And it doesn't just happen once. It's a constant piece as they move through a career and eventually away from something. So, there I am. Now 2017 is when I walked away. At 15. I get no benefits. I mean, I get no
Right.
there's no retirement involved.
Right.
There's nothing. I think they're working on trying to fix based upon years of service if guys deserve something in life. But you walk away from the great healthcare or the lower cost of healthcare to taking on the cost of private sector.
Yeah.
But I made the right choice. Right choices still have impact. Right choices still hurt.
Yeah. So no regrets, but there are consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that's that's something that's really hard for, I think, a lot of people to consider. Like, if I have no regrets and it's the right decision, well, I shouldn't have consequences. Well, that's not the real world.
No.
It doesn't work that
No.
way. So, and you obviously were able to navigate that. And then along comes this crazy golf thing that you get invited to, and all of a sudden you're thrust back. And I want to say that was 2018, or is it 2017?
2018.
Well, 2018. So time goes on, but talk a little bit about that. And it's not really about necessarily the warrior's journey per se, but you're.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, there's a man. You talk about I come off mission. My focus and direction in life is looking very different. I'm thankful for what I have. I'm thankful I can pour into lives of so many people.
Yeah, and you're all in on your company. You're focusing.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I love
which was
those people.
probably cathartic.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a great piece for even stabilizing my own life and purpose with intention. But man, there's still a void. And I'm the point is, you take the uniform off me does not remove the fact that I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
And people got to know that.
Yeah.
Like that uniform did not define me.
Right.
Right. I'm a warrior by heart, by mindset.
Yeah.
That'll stay with me the rest of my life. Yeah. But I have to feed that warrior.
Sure wish all of our military members had that same perspective. But yeah, and I feel the same way. I'm old and decrepit now. So I'm like, hey, if my country called today, I'd go. I probably wouldn't be able to keep up with half the things, but I do my best.
Just point and send them, Kevin.
Yeah,
you're great, man.
Yeah, well, because you raise your right hand and you make that commitment. It's kind of a lifetime commitment, to defend my country and to commit myself to the Constitution, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, it's not something you do for a season. There's something that gets in you. I get that. Yeah, totally.
That void of walking away, especially on the reserve side. I mean, there's nothing. You can't even step back into that world.
Yeah.
Like you've walked away from it, and so it looks off in the distance, and your heart is saddened by that, right? Because what was once yours is now literally you stand on the outside.
Yeah,
and
so you push it away.
You push it away, right? And so as I came into someone, another military buddy, reached out and wanted me to sponsor a golf tournament, and I'm like. Okay,
whatever,
and whatever, but he was also listen, man. It's just veterans, and actually ended up being it's a little Blackwater veteran group, right? We're all from the Springfield area. We all served. We all in the Army. Right. We shared similar path, but we all worked for Blackwater, and so there's a brotherhood.
You're battle buddies.
We're battle buddies,
yeah,
and a chance to play golf with battle buddies.
Sure,
let's roll. Sign me up. I'm in. Here's a sponsorship. So I had no clue what I was walking.
Thanks for
into.
doing that, by the way.
Yeah. I'm thankful I did too. And so you walked in, and it didn't take long where my heart was overwhelmed with a sense of belonging. God immediately helped show me and give me a purpose and direction. I'm able now to wait. This is something I can serve again. I can be on mission. I can impact lives, and I can be around more veterans. Was it a life-changing moment for me, because I didn't realize a lot of what I'm sharing with you. Listen, you don't know in those moments.
Right.
I'm sharing you from a perspective now of things I've learned along the way.
Looking back. Yeah.
Looking back.
Yeah, right.
But in those moments, even when I came to find the Warrior's Journey, I didn't realize all of the reality in my struggle, when I was wrestling with. My perspective was off in so many areas.
But you knew something was happening. Something was happening. But
it was buried. I buried it. I hid it. I didn't talk about it. I felt alone. This whole part of me was just buried away. And
that isolation part of it is so devastating. And I don't think we've come to this conclusion even today, that if somebody says, well, what's your number one mission? We've said warriors helping warriors and healing invisible wounds, but you know what it really is? It's getting people who have served out of isolation. That's the number one kind of mission. We can bask it in warriors helping warriors, but what does that mean? It really means that. I think you're addressing it.
Yes.
And here's the crazy thing. Man, you had family, you had community, you guys were, you had a church, you had a business, you're successful. It's like, man, but these are the guys unchecked that are taking their lives. And then we wake up and you hear about this and you're like, what are you talking? What do you mean? There were no signs. Well, they were there. They were just buried. So yours are now being exposed through a crazy golf tournament.
I think what the Warrior's Journey, as through the birth of the Warrior's Journey and how it came to be, and the things that were discovered along the way, when you talk about, you look at these top 10, 11, 12 major components of identifying what a soldier is going through and wrestling with. What was so interesting about that is we all feel something, right? And the truth is, it's not sometimes that I have a hard time even communicating what it. You can't define what this is inside here,
right?
And so it becomes an emotional. It's all grouped into one thing, and ultimately people, that's just a PTSD, and because you're dealing with something. No, what was so great, my aha moment for me was when I got to read those, because they were defined as certain things, and as I looked through the list, and I'm, wait, that's me.
Yeah.
Now there's words to put to that,
and it's specific.
Specific,
yes.
And until you can put words to it, how do you walk out of that? How do you, right? It begins to identify the reality of identifying. Hey, man, there's 4 of those things on that list. That's what I'm struggling with. I couldn't share it with someone. I didn't know how to say it through words.
Yeah.
And there it was. It came to life, which then began to help me to talk about it.
Maybe bring some hope.
Understand it and hope.
Yeah. It's like, whoa, okay. Now that I know it, now that I can see the enemy, I can attack that enemy.
That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was
So
a gift.
awesome.
And so to know that that's available, to know that, man, that the impact it had on my life, if that's my life, this is something that I believe will have tremendous impact on every soldier's life.
Yeah.
And so it did. It put me back on mission.
That's
it
awesome.
fills a void in my life. I'm no longer on the outside, right? I have all that experience, all that journey, the ups and downs, the gifts, and the what was shaped through all that wasn't for nothing.
That's so cool that you say that, Jonathan, because what I think I'm hearing you say is I'm leveraging this whole thing that was an identity for me, although I didn't feel it was completely my identity, right? It's like there's still stuff that I can never shed, things I've learned, my experiences, the talents that I have, the gift of some of the leadership principles that, that I'm bringing in here that are really, really cool. But now I get to actually apply it at a whole new level, maybe even more effectively than ever. I think that's kind of what I'm hearing you say. So I'm happy to hear that because, at the end of the day, for those of us that were developing this in the beginning, that's exactly what we hope for, because that you have to give a platform for people to come to their own conclusions on that. You can't say that to somebody. I mean, if I would have gone to you that first day and said, Jonathan, here's what you need,
Yeah,
you would have been like, let me punch you in the throat.
Yeah. Not today, Kevin.
You'd be
not
like,
today.
get away from me, you stupid idiot. It's like, I mean, and rightfully so. So how do we present it in a way where there's a trust? So in a sense, I know that we gained your trust, and as we kind of begin to wrap this up, I want to be able to give you some opportunity to leave maybe with some good final thought, because you've given some great stuff here. This is amazing. I know for sure people who will listen or people who watch this are going to be really super encouraged just by your story, by your journey, because so many people identify with it. But for us, long term, it wasn't just an event that led to deeper engagement and conversations, walking through, and then of course I'm like, hey man, we gotta, and your story is so unique because it wasn't that you went to a bunch of the different programs that we offer. You got involved. I wanted to give you opportunity to express your gifts, and for you, it was leading. It was being a part of that. Getting you in the inside, and I knew you had a lot, and that became, I think, somewhat cathartic for you, right? So, and to me, now here you are serving on our board, and I can't tell you, you, and there are several others, but you're part of now a team. You're part of the executive command staff that has made what the Warrior's Journey is today, and invaluable. I mean, the value that you've brought to this, or to us, and to me even personally, has been off the chart. I don't even have words, So even to the point where I've talked to your wife and said, "Hey, Audrey, I'm really sorry. I hope we're not taking too much time." And it's so funny. Her response is, "Are you kidding me? This is awesome." She's like, "No, I promise you, I will tell you if it gets to be too much." But no, this is fantastic, and it's been good for our family, and which is music to my ears.
It does. I'm a healthier. Right. The idea is to be a better father, better husband, a better leader, right, an employer. Those better serve your community, because I'm healthier, right? Healthy people now still have a responsibility in this thing, and I think that's the call. That's my belief and mission in this. It's afforded me some tremendous growth in my own life. It's helped with a sense of belonging, putting me back on mission, and we need to. And I have a desire to bring others along on that journey, right? To meet them where they're at, to get them to a place where they are healthier and they're contributing again, because then they have a responsibility to turn around and pull the next guy along the way also. That's how the issue is so huge, right? With so little results. We keep talking for years. We talk about the tragedy of what's happening every day with the loss of lives and the suicide in our soldiers. But you have to battle it. You have to fight it.
Right.
So, right. We just can't just accept it.
Right.
And so I feel that way. And when I believe something, I'm sold.
Right.
I'm all in. I'm not selling you something.
Right.
I'm offering you something.
Right. Because this is coming out of my inner deep passion.
That's it. Yeah. There is a way out.
So good.
And so I think
good.
It makes it's natural for me. It's fulfilling. I'm loving on people. I'm serving people. And who better to love on than your brothers and sisters in arms, right? That you battled with. There's a great need. And so my heart's heavy for them. And to be a part of that, be an organization that every day wakes up to serve them, to provide hope. And like you said, sometimes, man, it's the simplest. It's not all complicated answers here. Right. But understanding they're not alone and pulling them out of the isolation, that there's others that can walk with them and stand with them, just put them in a healthier position to be better in every area of their lives. So
and you bring such a level of credibility. You, your brother, all of our other connectors who have had these. We all have different experiences, but that's why Warriors Helping Warriors is. I feel like our biggest job, as an organization, is to create an environment of trust, where an individual like you can really have a relationship or be introduced to someone who can say, "Oh, well, that's a guy I can talk to," or "That's a guy I feel comfortable with," or "That's a guy I know who understands where I am." And I think if people would describe, what's the key to the success of what's going on with the Warrior's Journey, with the incredible suicide interventions that we continue to have, it's not us, it's just the environment, and then we have the opportunity to just let that person really start to unpack. And no, maybe they need more. Maybe they don't. We're going to help them discover that. We're going to give them the opportunity.
Meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
And
not pegging them into a hole, but because you're individual. It's so funny because when I first heard you give an actual public testimony about what the Warrior's Journey meant to you, which was, few years
Yeah.
ago, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, because I wasn't even aware of what God was doing and what was happening in your heart and life through you serving and being a part of this. I'm like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, hey, it happens differently with different people. So thank you. Thank you for
one of the gifts through this whole thing is remember I talked about before I lived in two separate worlds.
Mm-hmm.
The gift is I get to live in both together now.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
That's a gift.
Yeah, and it's not fighting against each other.
Not fighting.
That's so awesome.
And I don't have to turn one off to turn the other on.
Oh, that's huge.
And so when you think of that journey and you think of, as you gain perspective as life moves, you're realizing, man, what a transition, right? What was so hard and what you did every day and you learn to do it, realizing God now has given both an opportunity to coexist and to thrive together. So
that's so
it's
cool.
a gift.
You just encapsulated something. You communicated and articulated something that I resonate huge with. I mean, because that's why I'm so passionate about this. I love my military life.
Yeah.
I got out of the military because I felt a call to do pastoral ministry, and I didn't, I just didn't feel a sense of chaplaincy was not, I just didn't feel like that was the right route. And now since 2014, and I feel like that's all come back together. I mean, the way you just said that was like, wow, that's my story too.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm part of the team again.
Yeah.
And it's really neat to see that man, this thing lives on, so wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. I'm gonna I'm gonna mark that down.
Yeah.
You just helped me.
Yeah.
So way to go, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so wrapping it up, we'll land the plane here. Okay, so forgive me because I could just talk to you forever. I just love the perspectives that you bring. But if we're thinking in terms, I always like to finish this way. If you think about the people who will listen, what's maybe one important point you want to make sure that you would want to emphasize, and maybe that was it, what you just shared. But or if there's anything else, what would you want to say to men, women who've served, or those families? What do you want to leave them with?
Yeah, man, it's a great question. And I haven't had time to think about it, but I do know, as I thought through this through different stages of my life, because I think one of the biggest challenges we have, and it's why we're struggling, so many young, or not even young people, but military personnel are struggling at all ages, is that they allow something to define them. Right? We take maybe our darkest moment and we allow it to define our whole life. The hardest thing, allow it to define us. Right? Sometimes the greatest thing, we allow it to. Well, that's not true. Right?
Both are unhealthy.
Right? Both are unhealthy
Yeah.
because it's reality is things are happening in life, and they happen for us. They're growing, they're teaching, but we have too many people that are stuck with that one thing, right? That military, the hardship, and man, they allow that to control the entire narrative, and they're held captive by it.
Yep.
Because they can't get out of it. And this is their whole life in a nutshell. And they allow that identity. They allow, people's response to them. And sometimes it now becomes a need that they have. And so they're being defined. And I've never been defined by those things. Everything that's come to me has been for me. And so my journey through school, right? The misguided young man, in a sense, trying to find his way. All right, I'm not defined by that. It's a part of my life that has given me so much of who I am today.
Right.
My military career, the ups and downs, the successes, the failures, the wrong choices, the right ones, the in and out of my family's life, the on and off, does not define me. It's a part of lessons learned, shaping, developing, growing, which plays a part of who I am today. Right? My struggle post-military, all those things, I'm not defined by it. And we allow things to define us. We stay captive to them, and everything else in life is hindered by it, and you never get past things. And so I do think we have to have that mindset shift. Yeah, there's some hard things that happen in your life, but outside the military, there's a lot of hard things that happen in homes in this country.
Yeah.
There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of brutality in this world.
Yeah.
Right. So guess what? Some of those things they face is a lot harder than what you faced.
Sure.
And I've seen so many of them overcome things.
Right.
Right. So you can be an overcomer.
Yeah.
And have to realize all of that is meant to give you everything you need today for the choices that God gives you and the opportunity you have. And I'm going to take all these things and I'm going to apply them to the next opportunity. But we cannot, and I'll say it again, allow certain brutal moments in life to define us and hold us captive.
Yeah.
And I think if we can move past those for understanding, because God has purpose and intention,
Right.
realize when you realize your life has purpose,
Yep.
you'll move past those
Even
things.
outside the military.
Outside the military.
Especially.
Yeah.
I always thought of the military as kind of somewhat of a pseudo, not counterfeit, but it's a pseudo kind of experience to what you can have in real life. Because we are on mission. We're in a fight. In this life. It's just the way it is. But there is great victory and great health. Man, that's awesome. And here's what I capitalize on what you're saying is it's a choice.
Yeah.
And some of us can make that choice a little bit easier than others. And I think, maybe what I would just maybe on the tail end of that, if I could, not to in any way diminish, but hopefully to accentuate and maybe bring a little added value to the listener is that if you're having trouble, finding how to make that choice, that's maybe where we come in. We can help. We can come alongside, and and we're not supposed to be able to make all those choices by ourselves.
Making the choice doesn't solve the problem. It's
Correct.
the beginning of a journey.
There you go.
Right. So
That's
this
right.
is where we fit in.
That's right.
But that's the choice to keep moving forward. The choice to never quit.
Yes.
Right. Those things are still. Man, it doesn't get you to where you need to be.
No.
But we will meet you there.
Yeah. Talk about resources, possibilities. Help you, assist,
brotherhood,
in a relational type of experience. No judgment, no red tape. Hey, listen, it is what it is, and if you're listening to this or watching this, listen, if you're a warrior, please don't hesitate, contact us, because that's why we're here. That's the whole point, and that fulfills the mission. And that could happen in a way that well, I'll just make it this way. We will commit to make sure it happens in a way that is unique to you.
Yeah.
We're not going to pigeonhole you into something. So, and I know you've been, you know that. Yeah. And I just hope that if you haven't had that opportunity as you're listening to Jonathan, that man, you've been inspired to contact us today.
Yeah.
So
Great.
Good stuff, man.
Great
Stuff.
I love it.
Jonathan, thank you, man. And we will definitely, with your time frame, when you can fit it in, I'd love to have you back and make you a regular on this thing.
I love this mission. I love talking about it. I love to inspire and encourage people if I can. And I thank you for your vision. I thank you for giving me a chance to walk alongside you. I'm thankful for the brotherhood and the friendship. Thank you.
I mean this with all of my heart. It's an honor. It's an honor, and it continues to be an honor. I know you share this too. An honor to help others in that role too. All right. Well, thank you so much. If this is your first time to the podcast or video cast, thanks for joining us today. If you would, please check us out, twj.org. Really simple. We try to make it even for Marines, just to get to TWJ. I'm sorry. I'm going to get some flack on that one. Only kidding, guys. Semper Fi, But hey, reach out to us, and we'd love to be a part of your life in any way we can to serve. So until next time, thanks so much for joining us here on the Warriors Journey podcast. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Warriors Journey podcast. Be sure to leave a review, and to ask questions, give, or get involved, visit twj.org today. The Warriors Journey. Warriors helping warriors heal invisible wounds.